Hey guys, welcome back to more Karen stories. In this video, an entitled Karen trespassed on my private property and then calls the cops on me, claiming I destroyed her car on purpose. Let's dive right into the story. So I will set the scene for you guys before we start getting into the psycho idiots who don't hear anything besides their own voices. I live in a small community lying on the outskirts of suburbia, in between the cookie-cutter neighborhoods and the straight-up farmland. It is nice out there, it's quiet, and you actually get to know your neighbors and be part of a small community if you want. You have room for all the dumb space-wasting hobbies you could want, and you also get to stay away from the hustle and bustle. You can take your time. Then there are people who move out there for their perfect escape, when they are the ones the rest of us need to escape from. People who make these properties are not worried about timeliness. We had a little gravel road that connected all the properties to the county road that was our only way out of the area. It basically meandered its way through the properties in about the least logical way possible. It turned on my property and went the length of another 7 properties before turning and connecting to the county road. To give you an idea, even though it bordered my property for the entire length of it, my driveway was just connected directly to the county road on the opposite side. Karen moved to a house further in the group of properties a little more than 2 years ago. She started out trying to act like she was both better than us and yet still part of our community. She would speak to us like she was in charge, and I'm just grateful that no one let her start the HOA she kept insisting on before our incident occurred. If she already acted like she owned the place without it, then we would have been welcoming in a tyrant to create it. She walked her dogs on our property, or more often made her kids walk the dogs and told them they could use our yards because she could not be bothered to actually walk, and left their poop. Trash would appear in our yards, and some of it couldn't be confirmed, but others could through either witnesses or the fact that Karen's household was the only one that bought most of the stuff we saw. And on days where she was particularly impatient or running late, she would just casually drive through my property, so she did not have to meander through the last stretch of the gravel road. At first, I did not realize what was happening. I just thought that something had changed ecologically and affected the growth of one part of my yard or something, but then it became clear that these were just tire tracks. I had not seen who was driving through my yard, but I also parked my car next to the garage where it is visible to the gravel road at the turn. I decided to do an experiment and parked my car out of sight of the gravel road and watched my property for a few days. And lo and behold, Karen goes driving through my property. I was in so much shock at her blatant disrespect that I did not do anything for this first drive that I witnessed. This was not gonna continue like this though, trust me there. Karen had already been there for months and I did not realize right away when she started, but once I thought about it a bit, I realized she had probably been doing this since she first moved in. I waited until I saw her come back home that evening and then went over to her house. I asked nicely if she would stop driving through my property as it was causing damage on my private land. She started out trying to claim ignorance and was even indignant that I would accuse her because she apparently was new to the community and we just wanted to keep her an outsider. I let her speak her piece and then countered by telling her that I saw her driving through my property earlier today. This then led her to an obviously false, sputtering claim that she thought it was a public road and just drove on it after tire tracks had already been made. She then claimed that since the tire tracks had already been there, I might as well be neighborly and let her use them when she was running a bit late. I declined her selfish offer and told her that I need her to stay off my property. Because of her entitled behavior, I immediately distrusted her. I did not want to just wait to see her doing the same BS again, so I got some markers and specifically marked my property as no trespassing and made sure the property line was clearly marked along the gravel drive. I ended up not paying much attention to the situation though. I know I remember distrusting her, but either I was too busy to deal with it or just too nervous about getting dragged along through her BS. I saw continued signs that it happened every once in a while, but I also started parking out of view of the gravel road just to add the extra element of uncertainty to slow her down. It seemed that at this point, she was just driving the shortcut when she actually was late or needed to save a minute. Nothing more than not wanting to deal with her kept her little shortcut open a lot longer than I would have kept it if I had a backbone. Then came the period of the situation that I think every Karen thrives off the most. The Karen is immediately fully bought in and committing unbelievably blatant crimes simply because you told her what to do. So meanwhile, us poor uninitiated suckers think that if we are polite, then we will just get through that thick skull as if hot air is not the only thing beneath that hard surface. I added even more signs and added cones and then small ribbon fencing just to make the markings absolutely unmistakable. I went from asking her nicely to telling her that I would be contacting the police about trespassing. I asked for payment for the damage to my yard and showed her that I was tracking all the costs associated with her behavior. I even parked my car not just in the open, but directly next to her tire tracks, and she still had the balls to keep doing it. And not just that anymore. She would drive her car a half-mile from her house to walk him in my yard so she could leave her dog poop only in my yard, and she would then dump any trash in her car on the tire tracks as she drove through. She just drove through the ribbon fences and vandalized my signs. She even tore up the bill I gave her and threw it away on my property. I briefly wondered if I would have been better off letting her just mess up one small stretch of my yard rather than bring this all down on me. Then I had my partner at the time remind me that it was my property and I had the right to protect it. She told me that I had to stand up for myself and take my property back if Karen was going to continue with her belligerence. So my little orange ribbon became foreshadowing for a larger indicator of my property. I did not really do this next part on purpose, but in the time it took to get all the proper licensing for construction to go on. I was not gonna half-ass it with a wooden privacy fence, and a cable fence would have just been asking her to tear it down. When everything was ready, she was going on a family vacation for a week. My masterpiece was done by the time she returned. The next morning I was summoned out of my house by Karen, absolutely sitting on her horn, surprisingly not breaking the steering wheel while she was at it. "What can I help you with, Karen?" She leaned out the car window and snapped, "Don't give me your sass! What is this awful thing you have done?" Marked my property line so I can properly care for my yard. I had some issues with the section of my yard that kept causing problems. I figured I would nip the cause of it in the bud. She spent a bit too long pulling herself back into the car and then throwing the door open so she could storm out and face me through the fence. "You are blocking my God-given right of way." God-given? Yes, just as he tells us to be a good neighbor, which is why I have no doubt you would scoff at his attentions, you heathen. She was sputtering so much I took a step back for my safety. Karen, me protecting my home is not harming my neighbor. Certainly not as much as your disrespect and vandalism are. At this point, Karen lost most of her continuity in the conversation and just started ranting. She turned so red it reminded me of the cranberry sauce at my recent Thanksgiving dinner. Even if I wanted to share what she said, most of it would need to come with a trigger warning if it didn't also risk me getting cancelled if this Anon account were connected with me. Anyway, I had fallen into a bit of a daydream by the time she threw herself in her car and started driving. Luckily, I was present enough to back up and enthralled enough to not turn around, so I got to see Karen total her car on my newly installed fence. It was 100% worth the repairs, even if I was not gonna sue Karen for repairs. I called 911 and was midway through explaining the ludicrous situation when I heard Karen frantically explaining herself to another 911 operator how I had attacked her and destroyed her car. With my magical moving fence, I guess. Before the cops arrived, the nearby neighbors that had come when they heard the horn came and told me what they had witnessed the entire situation and would testify. When the cops did arrive, one had to take the time to take Karen's report as she laid out the tale of destruction I supposedly had caused. Meanwhile, I spoke calmly with mine about the history of trespassing and littering, and I even still had some of the mail trash that had her name on it. Karen's story did not go unheard though, and when she was being arrested, the charge of filing a false police report was tacked on to the end of her new rap sheet. I pressed charges, of course, and my lawyer helped me get not just the money for the fence repairs, but also for all the costs tracked for my efforts to keep her off my property before the fence and emotional damages. The community heard about Karen's arrest, and word of her jump-starting the HOA in our community died out. I still see her drive by when I'm in my yard with my dog. I'm happy that he can now roam free in the yard, so that is one benefit of the situation. And the next one is a fantastic petty revenge story that you don't want to miss. And by the way, if you have watched until here, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. So I'm a travel agent and have a nice little office where my clients come to meet us or book travel. One of my clients, we'll call her Kay, has had issues with everything we have done for her. She booked a trip that was cancelled due to the pandemic lockdowns in April 2020. Most places were closed and she was not flexible about destinations, so we couldn't do much and finally offered to refund her the full amount and therefore making no money despite putting in hours of effort. Kay has decided that she wants us to give her a free trip because it's our fault she couldn't go on her original trip. Again, the lockdowns, government regulations, etc. So every week she makes one visit to our office to harass us into getting something for free. It never works, but she has been doing this since we issued her a refund. Last week I was talking to a couple of new potential clients in my office and Kay comes in. Our waiting area is centrally located and all our cabins are around the waiting area. She saw me busy and started knocking on my door constantly. I had no option but to excuse myself and open the door to tell her to please take a seat as I'm with other clients. She wouldn't have it though and demanded I speak to her about the trip that I cancelled and ruined for her. Now this obviously concerns my new clients and I can see them getting ready to get up. I decide that I've had enough of her. I look to my new clients. Would it be okay if Kay stepped in and I gave her a couple minutes? You all are so comfortable, so don't need to move. She can use the other chair there. New clients shrug, because let's be honest, it's a weird situation. Me, Kay, please confirm you were supposed to go to random international destination in March 2020? Karen, yes. Me, the airline cancelled your flight due to the pandemic and did not offer a refund, am I right? Kay, yes, but... Me, I'm sorry ma'am, please let me finish this verification as I need to make sure I got all the information. I will certainly hear what you have to say. Karen didn't say anything. Did we offer to rebook you on flights to X, Y, and Z? Karen, yes. Me, did you decline those destinations with no explanation? Karen, yes. Me, did you reply to any of our emails asking you to let us know what you were looking for on this trip so we could plan the trip for you? Kay, oh, I'm sorry, I need to head out. I forgot I have a meeting. Me, ma'am, please give me a couple more minutes. Karen, okay. Me, when you did not reply to our emails, we issued you a full refund and absorbed the cancellation fees and deposits of your non-refundable reservations. Karen, yes. Me, ma'am, please tell me what you would like us to do. As you know, we did not cause the cancellation. The cancellations were beyond our control and we even gave you a refund, losing money ourselves. How can I help you? Karen, no, nothing, I'm sorry, have a great day. Once she left, I apologized to my new clients that they had to see this. They were super understanding, but my favorite part happened after that. One of the couples said, "Isn't that Karen? She goes to our church, she's very active." I immediately go, "Yes, you all go to the same church?" What a small world. Continue reading for the twist. Clients end up making a huge reservation and I'm a happy camper. 3 days later, a friend calls and asks what happened with Karen in my office and I walk her through the entire episode. She laughs and asks, "So did you make her go through this because you knew they both go to my church?" Me, why yes, of course. You referred them both and told me that they are from your church. She's been harassing me for months and my employees detest her. She had told us how active she is in church and how much she deserves a vacation, so I knew others in your church would know her, but she didn't seem to recognize them. Later found out from my new clients that Karen loved to berate people to get what she wanted, and it turns out she was expecting more money from us for her lost time and efforts. In return, her church now knows how she harassed us and we have gotten a lot of free marketing from this story. And the next one is another petty revenge story. So I, 19 female, quit my crappy job at a fast food chain that has a certain arch recently and remembered this story, which I thought was funny. Unfortunately, this is a very true story, so I know it's a bit ridiculous. We had these regulars that would come through the drive-thru near enough every day, and I was always the one handing food out the window. They were an older couple and I was happy to make accommodations to allow handing them food and drinks easier. However, it became increasingly difficult to allow their awful attitude towards me. For context, my branch of the restaurant was one of 5 in my town, but the rest were 20-ish minutes away. We were the worst rated as we were a small but extremely busy as a result and run by literal teenagers half the time. Lunch and dinner rushes were a mess as managers were more concerned with stats than actually running the place well. This couple would come through at our busiest time, order the same thing, shouting at the order taker, payment window and me for how slow we were. Our small kitchen was unable to accommodate how busy we got, so wait times were often 300+ seconds, supposed to be 120. Every time they would yell at me for how busy we were, how slow, how their food would be cold, how it wasn't fair to make an old couple wait, and every time the man would ask for extra cream on his latte, and if he didn't get it he would become irate. I would do it for him because I had learned to take the bullet for taking too long rather than deal with this guy. So much so that he would call me his creamy girl with a crap-eating grin on his face, and every time I would laugh but explain that it wasn't appropriate. On this day, I was maybe 16 or 17, we were flat out busy, 600 plus seconds, when the cream couple arrived. I asked them to pull into a bay and we would bring the food out so we could serve the next customer whose order was prepared. He went ballistic on me, refusing to move, shouting at me, slamming his hands on the dashboard, the classic temper tantrum and refusing to move. This went on for so long, I started explaining to my manager the issue, who would not take any crap, the situation, and she phoned the police to remove the guy. This is usually enough of a threat to get the customer to go, but not this time. He said something along the lines of, "Every time I come here we have to wait and my cream melts. And every time we come here you are working. You are an awful person." I'm not the kind of person to take crap from people, you get the energy you give, but up until now, I'd been forgiving. So I blurted out while he was yelling at me. "So, go somewhere else, it's called problem solving, dude." He was stunned before lashing out again, explaining this place was his only option and there was nowhere I could make him go anywhere else. So I said, "Wanna bet?" Latte and extra cream in hand, I poured the coffee all over the roof and window of his Fiat Panda. To clarify, I was gonna pour it out the window, but he was parked too close, and as I was thinking about it, I realized that I could safely pour it into his car window and roof and not burn him. I then asked him again to pull around and his order would be ready soon, and slammed the window. I then promptly burst into tears out of exhaustion and hate and began making my way to my manager to tell her my crime. The police turned up basically straight after, and we explained what was going on while the cream man was trying to open the window. They asked him to go and explained he was now trespassing if he didn't go. Long story short, next thing I saw was this 70-plus-year-old man swinging at this copper before quickly getting put into the cop car, leaving his very frail wife still set in shock, latte-less. Did this man deserve to get arrested? Probably not. Was it appropriate for me to pour coffee on his car? Maybe, maybe not. You decide if I'm the a-hole here if you want. Either way, it felt good, plus I did not lose my job. Edit some more of the crappy things this guy would do to explain my OOT reaction. He would throw a temper tantrum if we were too busy to top up on his extra cream. If there wasn't enough cream, we would have to remake the drink. The coffee machines could take 2 minutes to pour sometimes, and would then complain about how long the order took. Often he would ask me to add like 5 packets of sugar to his pre-syruped latte, which I would happily accommodate for if we were not busy, but also remind him that there was like 3 pumps of syrup in there already. He would then complain that it was too sweet and accused me several times of adding more sugar than he asked for. Remaking the drink would ensue. This was not the first time he refused to park up either. Sometimes he would, so it wasn't even that he didn't understand the concept like some didn't, but I was always happy to reiterate what he had to do. Worst of all, he would personally blame me if his service was not good enough, even if I didn't have anything to do with the drive-thru. My best friend was working on my day off and he apparently started screaming for the pink-haired girl to apologize for ruining his order when I was at home. I know I overreacted, I will own up, but this is borderline abuse. And yeah guys, before I let you go, I have one last story that you don't want to miss. It is from r/petty revenge and it's titled, "My mom kept insisting I have developmental disorders, so I handed her the controller." So my mom has self-diagnosed that I have developmental disorders and autism since I was 7. There were always books like Developmental Disorders, Kids Learning Games and How to Take Care of Autistic Kids. I thought that was pretty weird because I was doing fine in school and taking good care of myself in daily lives. I got good grades, made friends and even knew a ton of vocabulary for a 2nd grader. And by the way, ripe stars, OP in this story is not a native speaker. Anyway, fast forward to when I was 17, when we went to an actual doctor who told her that was not true, but she didn't drop it. She kept telling me things like, "You should not go to vet school because you're autistic. You should listen to modern music because that's how you make friends. You and your brother suck at video games because you're autistic and have developmental disorders." When she brought up the crap of, "You suck at video games because you have autism" again, I started Elden Ring, handed her the controller and said, "If you suck at this game, then you must have developmental disorders." And well, she could not even figure out how to jump or attack, even I taught her so many times. And by the way, ripe stars for context here, Elden Ring is a really difficult game, and pretty much there was no chance that OP's stupid mom would succeed at this game. Anyway, she got so frustrated and started screaming, she has not dared to bring up this complete nonsense ever since. Edit, I'm not a native speaker and I'm sorry for the bad grammar, I am Asian, 22 and about to graduate. I got a double major but didn't get into vet school. I'm currently staying with her, but I will move out when I graduate. My mom still insists that I have no self-help skills, and here are also some of the other crazy things that she does. She washes clothes at 80 degrees because she believes you can only get rid of bacteria by washing your laundry at 80 degrees. And by the way guys, I think that would probably melt my t-shirts. Anyway, number 2, a few weeks ago she said, "Your brother is 13 and still plays with Legos while his classmates are playing video games. My brother has pretty limited screen time because of her, and he does not have a smartphone. My older sister, her daughter from her first marriage, has kidney problems which come from her dad's side, and the doctor says I am fine, but my mom used to force me to drink 3,000 to 4,000 milliliters of water every day and would yell at me if she thinks I don't comply. I went to a Slash concert, she spam called and yelled at me because I got home at 23:30, and she thinks I like old music because I want to get along with my dad, who does not like the artist. She also asks me to read Peers for Young Adults, Social Skills Training for Adults with Autism Spectrum Disorder, and other social challenges from time to time. And yeah guys, from what I've heard, I think someone should call CPS or something. That mom is certainly not normal. Either way, I hope you enjoyed the stories and I will see you again tomorrow.